everybody, we're going to talk about how to add and subtract positive and negative fractions and decimals. These are notes from lesson 2.2 to 2.3, adding and subtracting rational numbers. When we're going ahead and we're talking about adding and subtracting rational numbers, you need to understand the operations of fractions as well as decimals. In our first example, negative 1 1/3 minus negative 5 and 1/4. I go ahead and I look at this, and it's originally a subtraction problem, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this problem to be an addition problem. And then I'm going to identify, I have some positives and some negatives. These end up being my zero pairs, so I'm going to subtract them away from 5 1/4. Anytime I deal with fractions, adding and subtracting, I also need a common denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and convert both of those to common denominators. I'm going to pick 12. I could pick 24, 36, but I'm going to pick the one that's the smallest. And after I go ahead and I do that, I know I'm going to be subtracting it, and to avoid borrowing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change both of those into improper fractions. So I have negative 16/12 and 63/12. If I were to go ahead and know that I have zero pairs here, I'm really doing 63 minus 16. You could go ahead and do this on the side, on the outside. Some people call that like a timeout, or it's showing your work. I have 8, no I don't, 4, I have 7, 47. My answer is positive because the larger value is positive. I'm now going to change this back, and this is 3 11/12. Common denominators, I made it into mixed numbers when it was I made it into improper fractions when it was mixed numbers to make it easier to go ahead and look at the operations. My next example is going to be decimals. Decimals need to have their decimal point lined up whenever I'm adding and subtracting. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this as an addition problem. As you notice, I'm adding 2 negatives. When I'm adding 2 negatives, I'm going to have more negatives. There are no zero pairs here. So I'm going to take this little timeout over here, and I'm going to add 6.25 plus 4.2. I'm going to line up my decimal points. I may need to add a 0. And I end up getting negative 10.45. This answer is negative because I'm adding negatives plus negatives. So negative 10.45. In these lessons, you need to remember that as fractions, you need common denominators. You're going to change anything subtraction to an addition. If it's a mixed number, you're changing it to improper, so it's easier to do the work. For decimals, you need to line up your decimal points. You're changing any subtraction to an equivalent addition expression, and then you may need to do some work on the sides. All right, guys, have a good one.